Hello, everyone. Stephen Rodriguez here to argue against my good friend Nathan. In Nathan's presentation of a congregational single elder presentation, I read it. It was good. I appreciate his diligence. I appreciate his ability to present some arguments in favor of a congregational single elder rule. However, in taking a close look at his words and his positions, I kind of come to identify a few flaws or a few counter arguments in his position of a single elder congregational church government. The first one and major one that I find is accountability. The first challenge or error that I find with his position is that while God may call a leader, in his particular church model, they must be voted in by the congregation. And being elected into an office that allegedly God calls presents a few problems. It presents a few concerns, a few challenges that I see. Primarily, the first one is, in fact, I would just say that this argument alone presents an array of challenges. Number one, if all believers, according to Brother Nathan and his methodology of church government, if all believers have equal standing before God, therefore all believers should be allowed the ability to vote. Okay, if that's true. Now, if all believers have a vote, then that should be really that should be a concern to a lot of people, because looking at the scripture, the Apostle Paul, he called when he was talking to the Corinthian church, or when he wrote to them, he referred to them all as the saints of God. He referred to them all as the church of God. And as we all know, the church of Corinth, it was far from perfect. You had people, well, I'm not going to go into everything that the Corinthian saints were involved with, but you know, and you can go look it up. And in the congregational single elder rule, these people who are involved in sin, idolatry, fornication, incest, those people get a vote. Now, that's a challenge. That's a problem in my view. So do you, all these people who are in sin get a vote. So do you really know people do you really want people who are in fornication to be voting for a pastor? Do you really want people who are in fornication, incest, idolatry? Do you really want somebody like that voting, taking a spiritual matter serious and voting? That's a problem for me. Secondly, the second problem I see with a congregational-led vote is that if you agree with my first argument, then you have to ask yourself, well, then who decides on who gets to vote? Okay, if you agree with me on the first, then not everybody should vote, because you really don't want an adulterer voting, taking a spiritual matter. You really don't want people who are in sin voting. So then how do you determine who gets to vote? Is it determined by by the offering basket? Is it determined by the attendance record? Seems like it could be a bit sketchy when deciding who gets to vote. So the fact that an entire church gets to vote in a pastor, it presents a lot of challenges. And finally, the one that I find probably the most troubling is that what if there's two or three candidates for the church? What if two strong candidates arise? What if a third? What if a fourth? Does one Do they debate? Do they stand before the audience on a Sunday and campaign? Does the existing pastor have influence? What if you are running for the office of pastor against somebody else, and you win, but you don't? It's not a landslide. What if you only win by 2 or 3 votes, and the congregation has 400 members, and you win the pastorship, but by only 5 votes? That means that almost half of your church did not want you as their pastor. That's challenging. And what if that person who lost, are they excommunicated? Are they asked to leave the church? What kind of influence will that person have going forward, knowing that he almost won the pastorship? So a congregational single-led elder presentation, as Brother Nathan states, where the pastor is chosen by the congregation, presents an array of challenges. The second major challenge that I see here with Nathan's argument is that those who are assisting, those who are assisting the pastor, the elders, the deacons, whatever you want to call them, the board, the core team, whatever terminology you want to use, what power do they have? Are they only assisting? It seems that Brother Nathan is suggesting that this group of leaders is just an assistance. There's no power there because it is a single elder rule. So once the democratic process is invoked and somebody is named a pastor, it's no longer a congregational elder. It's no longer a congregational led church. It's a single elder. Now, talking about that power and authority, we all read Brother Eli Lopez's paper on the single elder congregation, and what he highlights in his paper should be an alarm to everyone. It really should be an alarm to everyone in a congregational led church, and that once a pastor is elected, as Brother Nathan suggests, once a pastor is elected into office, there's a very slippery slope between a single elder rule from becoming a strong pastor rule. Brother Nathan mentions in his argument that that there will be spirit-filled pastors in the congregational-led groups. But what if a spirit-led pastor begins well, but then once the money starts to increase, congregation starts to increase, what if pride sets in? What if greed settles in? And the main concern that Brother Nathan and all those in the congregational single elder church should hear me on this is, who is he accountable to? Because in the model that Nathan presents, he's accountable to God and God alone. And to me, that's not good enough. To me, there has to be somebody that the pastor has accountability to, strong accountability, not just somebody like a sounding board, not just somebody to rub ideas off, somebody above him that could come in and take authority. I suppose another argument that I could make out of Nathan's paper or talk is that the inclusion of the Old Testament as a founding precept for a congregational-led group. Well, unfortunately, that doesn't work in the New Testament because the Old Testament, Bible is primarily dealing with the nation of Israel, the people of God, not a church. So examples of church government should be in the strictest sense found in the New Testament, and that's where we find the church. I'll end my rebuttal to Brother Nathan and to others with the following question. Did the Apostle Paul have the authority to remove either Timothy or Titus from office? If one of those two men went off the deep end, did Paul have the authority to go in and remove them? Not just them, but any of the elders that he installed throughout the book of Acts. And my answer is Yes, he did have that authority. And that authority from top down is not a congregational single elder church model. So, good day. Have a good afternoon. God bless.